I talk to a lot of technology professionals. Actually, it's everybody who they seem to be looking for other ideas to make money on the side. Sometimes we call this a side gig, but I notice a pattern. 90% of these people are waiting for something that does not exist before they start. There's three things specifically. They're waiting for the perfect idea, they're waiting for the perfect time, or they are waiting for the perfect market. None of those ever exist. The other 10%, the 10% who do something, they're asking a different question. They're asking the right question first. How do I actually know this is real? And this is where we want to dive in today. Here's what I mean. There's a massive difference between thinking and starting something that actually generates income, right? We spend a lot of time thinking instead of generating income. And the line between those two things is a lot sharper than you think. And I'm going to say it's $500, right? Not earth-shattering money, but enough money to tell you something. It's not 5,000, not 50,000 or any other number. It's just a $500. Now, for most of you, you're left thinking, well, that would be great. But there's many corporate professionals who would think that's not really going to be life-changing money. That's true. But it's also most people have not earned $500 outside of their day job. And if they have, they cannot find a way to repeat it. So if you can't make $500 outside your day job, you don't have a business, right? You have a draft, you maybe have a document. So that's what we're going to talk about today in this episode. We're going to talk about how you can get from where you are today to starting to generate that first $500 repeatably over and over. Let's dive in. There's a line in the sand. On one side of it, you are thinking about it. On the other side, you are doing it. That line is $500 to a real customer. By the end of this episode, you'll know whether you are just thinking about something on the side or whether you are actually moving to do something on the side. So why did I pick 500? It seems like an arbitrary number, but it's not. First of all, 500 is low enough that it's possible without quitting your day job. It doesn't take all of your effort or all of your energy. You don't need a miracle to make $500 happen. You don't need venture capital. You don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need these kind of things. It's pretty simple to do this. Most of my audience, we're talking about professionals, engineers, technology professionals, but this is true of just anybody, right? $500 is possible. Second is it's high enough, though, to mean something. $25, $50, yeah, those are also meaningful numbers, but they don't really bite, right? You need something that is not, hey, I sold something for $19 or $20 one time, or I sold something on Facebook Marketplace, or sold a little course to your mom. We're looking for something real because it tells us a couple of different things. Number one, it tells us something about your customer. The third thing is it's a monthly number. Now, that's a gotcha, right? Not a one-time $500. Can you make $500 or more every single month recurring or reliably, repeatably, right? Can you find one customer and solve a problem that's worth $500 to them every single month? Or can you find multiple customers that you can generate $500? But it doesn't really matter. But the point is repeatable. If you don't have something that's repeatable and you keep selling, and it doesn't mean every month it's 500 even, some are going to be bigger and smaller, but if it cannot keep selling, you don't have a business. You have a one-time offer that you might find on a Facebook Marketplace. So what you're doing here with this 500 is you are proving something not only to you, but you're proving something to your market. What you're proving to you, that's the harder person to convince, is that there is validation in market. If you ask a bunch of people, hey, would they pay you to do this? The answer probably would be yes. If you ask them if they were interested in things, yes. You'll find a lot of that, but there's a difference between interesting and here, let me write you a check, or here, let me give you my debit card. That's the thing we're trying to prove. Once somebody gives you money, they've said this is something that they value. The trick is not that they value you so much, but they value the problem that you are trying to solve for them. So $500 is the gate between a hobby and a business. It's low enough to be real, but high enough to count. So $500 is the difference between a hobby and a business. It's low enough to be real, high enough to count for something. All right, so here's your action item. Here's an action item just for you on this one thing. Don't overthink this number. You're like, oh, I think it should be 495. Or if you landed a customer for 750, does that count? Yes, it counts. If you land 2 customers at 300, does it count? Yes, it counts. You don't overthink it. But you're trying to get to, can I have a revenue of $500 a month in the business? That's all we're trying to do. And can I do this reasonably, repeatably? So here's what we see. And I'm going to say this is true of technology people, especially engineers. This is the way we do things. It's the way we've been taught to do things. And for many things, it's totally wrong. But I say it's also true of pretty much most everybody out there, because it's our education system has built this. And here's what we do. We come up with ideas, we build things, we decide to build things, and we say, hey, we can make a bunch of money doing this. And we finish building it, and we go out there and try to sell it to somebody. And sometimes even when we're really close to being ready to be finished building it, we're getting excited, but we package it up. And scope creep also happens, that we keep adding things to it. It's backwards, right? This is totally the wrong way to do things. This is not how big companies build products. This is the way wannabe entrepreneurs build products, right? And I know there are some exceptions, but it's not as much exception as you think about if you look out there in the market. But so think about your job though, right? When you were hired to design something, if you're a design engineer, did they let you just go build it? Did they say, hey, John, you're hired, you sit in that seat over there, build this? That's pretty rare. I've had job offers, not the ones that I took, but job offers that they said this, we want you to design products. But when they did that, they wanted me to start with understanding the customer landscape and understanding the requirements and things like that. So yeah, you get a spec first, you get some design scope, you get requirements is what we call it, before you start building anything, whether it is a piece of software, whether it is a piece of hardware, or some other more complicated thing. You know what your customer, your boss, actually needs to happen. So that's the way we do things at work, right? A lot of times we think we're building it and then hopefully the customer will come. No. When you were given the spec, your company has already determined our customer will pay for this. Let's hope. Marketing and all that activity, they've understood the needs of the customer. So we're going to do this backwards of the way most of us do things. And when I say backwards, I mean we're going to do it the right way. It's backwards from how many of us think. Number one, you're going to find a customer. That's it, right? Find a customer. Now, what's the definition of a customer? It's somebody with money in their pocket and a problem. That's it, right? Now, you're looking for specific kind of problems you enjoy solving. But they got to have a real problem that's not hypothetical, and they got to have the money to pay for it. That's a customer. So if you were a salesperson, that's what you would be looking for, right? And that's what we teach salespeople to look for, is people who can pay and who have a real problem. So number two, you understand their problem deeply. Not casually, you totally understand your problem. This is where your experience comes in. I'm an electrical engineer, and that's my background. I have entrepreneurial experience, but I'm probably not going to drive into some aerospace or airfoil type design as my problems that I'm going to solve. It's not my background. And could I? Yes, but it's not my background, not my interest. So for me to get from here to there is a leap, right? When there's stuff that's right here at my level that I don't even have to think that hard about doing, that customers need my help with. So understanding their problem deeply usually comes from listening to what they're saying. What are they doing right now? What's it costing them time and money? And these are questions that we ask. These are not things that you sit there in your brainiac little helmet and figure out. You ask your customer, what is the problem? So this is where genius comes in, because we don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be the smartest engineer or the smartest whatever you are to solve this problem. You have to find a person with a problem, find a person with money, and then start understanding what their problems are and asking enough questions to where you understand it deeply. And first of all, you're doing a triage. What is this? Is this a problem I can solve? Or is this a problem that I can't solve? Move on. You're looking for something that's worth it to you and that you can do. So number 3 is you quote them. So we went from here's a person, here's a problem, I've heard about it, I understand it, let me quote you a solution. Tell them what it would cost to solve their problem. This is the sales process. And number 4, if they say yes, do the work. This is the part that usually we're pretty good at. Sometimes we overthink it, but that's another issue. This is a $500 test, right? Because for most of us, we're going to find people with problems and they're going to be well over $500. I have a client, and he told me the other day, he said, I got on a phone conversation with a corporate guy doing some engineering work. We won't go into any details because I don't have his permission. But they said, yeah, this is the kind of problem we're having. Can you solve it? And he says, yeah, I think this is what you need. And they said, how much is it going to cost? And he said, I had no idea. He said, I said $850 an hour. And they said, okay, and let's get started. It was that simple. It sounds simple. There's a lot to that, but on the surface, it's that simple. What we do as engineers is the opposite. Again, we want to start from, hey, here's the problem. We want to design a solution. And let me tell you the other thing that we do. We want to over-design it. We call that sometimes scope creep. Most people skip step 1, is finding the customer. They jump straight into building. Now, this is true of engineers and technology people especially, but it's true of all kinds of people. It's a daily basis that I run into somebody who's built a product that they're ready to sell and they don't have any customers for it. I've seen people spend hundreds of dollars to millions of dollars building a product that nobody wants to buy. The thing to take away from here is your customer first, build it second. If you can't find a customer, you don't have a problem or you don't have a business idea. It's that simple. If you cannot find somebody willing to pay, there's no business. It doesn't matter how smart you are about it. So stop building in secret. Here's my action for you. It's an anti-action. Stop building in secret. Unless it's just a hobby, but that's a hobby, right? Today or this week, reach out to 2 or 3 people. Email, text message, reach out to 2 or 3 people and ask them what's eating up their time or costing them money, because they have it. Now, it may be on their day job, it may not, but do something that maybe is hard for you. Listen. Don't pitch. Don't jump in solving their problem too fast. Listen. One of them probably has a problem you can solve if you reach out to enough people. That's step 3, or that's a backwards way engineers build. Let's now talk about what actually counts. What actually counts? I need to be clear about what counts and what doesn't. A real customer is someone outside of your company. I always talk about the company of one. The customer is the person who pays you, and if you have a day job, your boss and your employer pays you. I'm talking about an external customer. I'm talking about a true entrepreneurial venture. I'm talking about a side hustle. Somebody outside of your company, not your boss, not your employer, somebody else, okay? And for most of us, let's be fair, we also probably need to be a little bit outside of our industry, right? If I design rockets for a living, I probably don't want to be designing a rocket for a competitor for so many reasons. Maybe that was a bad example because there's also legal issues there. But if I'm teaching courses for a university like I do, I don't want to go to another university and say, I'll teach the same course for you, right? Because I now created a competitor, and that's not good for anybody. What we want is somebody out on the outside. They actually have to pay, not a discount, not a test, not a favor. And many of you are spending a lot of time doing favors. They have to pay, and they have to pay full price and on time. So I'm just saying they got to pay. There's a lot of details there, and do they matter? Yes, but they got to pay. Why? Because payment changes everything. Payment changes your relationship. When money moves, we know things are real. And when money doesn't move, it's weird. People don't care. If you called me tomorrow and you said, I've got a problem and I think you got a solution, can you talk to it? Can we talk about it? And if I'm like, sure, I'll do you a favor. And maybe I'll give you some advice. Maybe I'll give you some golden advice. Maybe I will give you multi-million-dollar advice. But you know what? You probably won't listen. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm just saying that because of experience. That my own experience. Do I listen to free advice? Sure, it's nice. Do you listen to free advice? Sure, it's nice. But do you take action on it? No, because the free advice is probably not anything you wanted action on anyway, so otherwise you wouldn't be getting free advice. You don't usually go, when you break a bone, you don't usually go to a friend, hey, can you fix this for me real quick? Can you do me a favor? You go to somebody you feel is going to really fix the problem for you. I see people all the time who say they have customers, but when I dig in, all the time, I see companies out there that are on LinkedIn and they're selling services and they look like they're just killing it. Or I see their websites and they look like they're killing it. And when I dig in and they're talking to me or asking for my help, I realize they've done some work for some friends and they've never really gotten paid. They were testing their service. So this is not the $500 test I'm talking about. This is opposite. The $500 test has to be somebody who has a problem. It can be a stranger. It can be a colleague. It doesn't matter. It can be a friend that has a problem. It doesn't matter. Do they have a problem? Are willing to pay you? You quote them a market rate, they pay it. And you solve the problem. That's proof. But here's why this matters. Once it's done once, you know it's not broken. And this is really critical. You need proof. More than they need proof, you need proof to yourself that this will work. That's the hardest person to convince, is the one. Look in the mirror. That's your most difficult customer to win over. Because here's what you're after, is a real customer outside your company, real payment, no discounts. That's when you know it's real. And when you do that, when you land this, it's not a test run anymore. It's real. By the way, the definition in the United States, probably every other country, but let's just talk about the United States. The definition is when you take money from somebody else to do and solve a problem, to provide a service, you're a professional, right? The first time you throw a football or a baseball and you get paid for it, you are a pro. That's the test. And you are now also, by the IRS rules, in business. Whether you've got an LLC, an S Corp, or C Corp, or you're just trying to figure it out, you're in business, and that is the test. Now let me walk through an example. So when you've passed in the $500 test, here's what it really looks like in real life. There's a client of mine. He had been a professional engineer working in manufacturing, had been doing this work for years and years, solving a particular problem. In his case, it was a quality assurance issue. But he had expertise in this with a big giant company. And because of this, he knew how the big giant company operated and did quality assurance. What he didn't really understand was the depth of what he knew, is because that's how he was trained to do quality assurance. What he didn't know is all these other smaller manufacturing companies around his area, but around anywhere, their quality assurance wasn't quite up to par with what the big giant companies were. And of course, when the big companies buy from smaller companies, they demand quality, and there's part of the rub. In talking to some friends of his, doing an exercise very much like this, I'm using generic. Again, so I didn't get the details from them, or I didn't get permission to share the names, but we'll call him John. So John goes out there and talks to friends that he's met through association and everything, and he realizes that quality assurance is a big problem for some of these companies. They don't know how to do it. They don't have the people to do it, et cetera, et cetera. he found out that one particular company said, we need a clean process where we've been trying to do things, trying to learn on our own. It's just ugly and it's messy and it's costing us money. There's key. It's costing us money. We're losing money because of our association with the vendors we sell to, and we have to throw scrap away. Money. What he learned to do is he learned to listen for money problems. And he got a little clarity on how much it was costing them. And it was a lot. It was thousands and thousands of dollars a month, probably a lot more than that. But once he realized that was the problem, he said, okay, I think I have a solution for you. If you did a couple of different things, you could really save that money and you could get ahead of the game and have a better quality output. And by the way, John was talking off the cuff, right? Because he's thinking, this is the obvious stuff. This is not the hard work I do. This is the obvious, simple, no-brainer work I do. Everybody knows this. I remember him telling me that. Everybody knows how to do this. But whether they did or not doesn't matter. They weren't doing it, and they were losing big money because of it. And so this associate of his said, yeah, can you come in and talk to us? So he goes in, and I think it was on an off day or Saturday or something, and he goes in, and they were just blown away by just his simple little things and said, how much would you charge to solve this problem? He gives them a quote of, hey, I'll just give you a process. I'll charge you $2,500. And they were like, done. And they took it and they implemented it. Now that was a easy solution for him. He was like, I remember him calling me up and saying, this was almost so easy I was embarrassed to take it. There's a clue. It's not that he was cheating them. It's that his expertise was so deep in this area, he could take them a lot further, but they weren't ready for it. But they kept needing him. They kept needing help, and he found other people that needed this kind of similar help. That's proof. That's proof that his skills and his abilities were valuable in the market outside of his day job. And he was operating pretty much in the role of a consultant at this point. And he could do all of this work, he realized later. He could do as much of this work as he could stand to do. But he got started with one customer, one project, one kind of specific problem, and got his proof of what he needed. Now, we can see this in all kinds of scenarios. I've given you a technical one, but it doesn't have to be a technical one. It can be anything. If you can do plumbing, if you can do yard maintenance, anytime you will go solve somebody's problem and they will pay you, and you could build up to, hey, I could do this. I could do $500 worth of these every month without thinking about it and not sucking up all my time. There's a real example. There is the real proof. Think about this right now. Let me give you a specific action. Write down the names of 5 people you used to work with or know in your field. Connections you have, whether they're warm or whether they're a little cold, doesn't matter. Reach out to them this week. Just check in. All you're trying to do is communication. So let me just tell you a secret. All money comes into your pocket through other people. Money doesn't come from ideas. Money doesn't come from LinkedIn posting. Money doesn't come from all these other things. Money comes through connections to people. Talking to people is where money is going to flow. So it can be an email. It can be on Zoom calls. It can be in person. It can be on a phone call. But really, you've got to talk to the person because, number one, they control the money. And number two, they have the problem. And the two of those go together and you have a business. Let's now talk about the fear issue. And this one's real. This one is actually fun because I've been teaching this stuff at university and working with corporate people for 20-something years, helping them solve these problems inside and outside their employer. And fear has shown up to me as something that surprised me. It shouldn't, but I'm an engineer. I think logically, and I forget about the brain and psychology, and we're not logical, right? As much as we want to claim we're logical, we're not logical. People start saying to me things like, isn't this unethical to charge somebody for something that's so easy that anybody can do it? I hear that one a lot, including coming from me. Or, won't I get in trouble? Or, I feel sleazy trying to sell this kind of stuff. None of those things are true. Now, I can't tell you how people will think about you or judge you or feel about you. That's because we're all crazy, right? But if doing work outside of your job hours for a customer outside of your company on your own time and dime, it's totally different from doing your day job. Now, I will say this, let me say, first make sure your employer is okay with it. If you are directly in competition with your employer, no, okay, don't do it. Some employers are very encouraging for people to do outside work. Some want to stop you at all cost, but very few will try to stop you at all cost or can stop you at all costs. But there's restrictions about certain things you could do. Don't be in a gray area. Be clear. I remember working in a telecommunications firm, and there was a guy who was making fishing lures. Totally unrelated. At least I couldn't see any connection, that's for sure. But he was making fishing lures at home and selling them, and he ended up selling them to Walmarts and things like that. And it was a total different business. He did some on the weekend, and there was no overlap. Nobody cared. He wasn't stealing from telecom by doing that. Nobody buys a fishing lure instead of telecom services. And that's the way you look at that. Now, you certainly need to check with that. Look at your employment, but you probably, if you look around your company, you're going to find people who do it. Talk to your boss. It doesn't mean you're going to get a strong, warm, and fuzzy. We're not looking for, hey, yeah, you ought to do that. Some of you will. But it's that, hey, you're not violating anything. Look, what your employer is paying you for is to solve their problems. It's the same thing, right? They're paying you to solve their problems. They're not paying you to be a slave, that you don't ever do anything else or think about anything else outside of them. Now, the exceptions might be some of these financial firms. If you work for them, you got to be very careful if you touch anything financial. There's some real legal requirements. So that's where we're talking about what's the law, or if you work for some kind of government agency with security clearances, being careful there about not touching that stuff. But there, again, people are doing this all the time, and they're doing this very successfully, and they're doing it ethically. But once you've made $500 outside of your day job, your relationship with your employer does change. And here's how it changes is you are no longer dependent on them, and you start to realize it. And that is a powerful position, not only for you, but that's a powerful position for them. Because oddly enough, when you become less fearful about losing your job and all these dependencies issues going on, you become a better employee. Almost every single time you become bolder, your experiences on the outside world come into the employer, and you start to think about customers and what the customer cares about. Even if you're deep in the engineering world, you start to think about that, right? And it adds real value to your employer. But the main thing for you is you recognize that you're not dependent anymore. If you can earn 500, you can earn 5,000. They're all just numbers after this. More service equals more numbers. Now, sometimes this means you're having a conversation with your boss. Sometimes it means you need to set clear standards. Some companies require that you fill out a document. Like at universities, there's just the expectation that people do this. And I've seen this at many companies. There's an expectation that you do something on the outside. And the reason is, on both of these cases, it brings value back in to the company. You're not trapped. And by the way, it's also not sleazy when you're trying to make an offer to somebody. The other fear that you see here, there's just several things wrapped in fear. But the real fear is that you're putting out there that you're asking the question, am I valuable? Your employer is already filling your pocketbook. They see you as valuable. They're not stupid, right? You are providing value. That value is out there again. Other people have that problem, or other people have similar problems, or other people have problems that you want to solve. That's value. That's where we need to be thinking about value, is when you can solve my problem, it's not unethical, it's not cheesy, it's not stealing for you to charge me to solve my problem, because I'm the one with the problem. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to be such a good friend. You come over and do my dishes for me, right? Or cut my grass or solve any other problem. I wouldn't expect you to come cut my grass for free. I wouldn't expect you to, if you're an MD, to give me some pills because I don't feel good for free. I wouldn't expect that. I wouldn't expect you to do my taxes for free. I wouldn't expect your professional advice for free, no matter what it is. The truth is you can do this ethically, not only within your employer's scope of work, but also in serving your customers outside. These are fears that people get caught up on and they get trapped by the fears. So instead of looking about what's underneath the fear and trying to what is it? Fear stands for false evidence appearing real. Is we've just convinced ourselves oftentimes that this is a no-no, this is wrong, but we haven't even bothered to look. So take a look. Here's what I want you to understand about this $500 test. It's just a test. It doesn't matter. There's no passing or failing grade. It's a test that tells you something, right? And whether you get the $500, here's something that you probably don't realize yet, but whether you get paid $500 in your next 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 conversations, or you generate and find a customer, it doesn't matter. You are in motion, and that's what matters. As you listen to people and as you talk to real customers, you're going to find more problems than you ever could have imagined are out there. They're weird ones. They're things that you wouldn't have thought to be problems. They're things that you may have heard 1,000 times but didn't think about them as being a problem. And when you get your mind thinking like that and you start seeing problems everywhere, and by the way, they are everywhere, then you start recognizing them more and you start finding more opportunities. So just getting in motion, it's not even about the $500, but getting in motion, start having these conversations. And now when you can get to, hey, I could solve that, and here's how much I'm going to charge for it. And again, that number doesn't really matter either. It's just, can you do it over and over again? If you're going to spend 50 hours and charge me $20, well, that's dumb on you. But if you charge me $20 for a quick fix, that's fine. How many times can you do that? Can you do that $500 worth of times? Sure you can. That's the kind of thing that you're looking for. And just by getting away from, hey, I'm going to just quit listening to Dale right now, and I'm going to go over here and try this. I'm going to quit reading and thinking on paper, and I'm going to send emails and text messages to people and have conversations. That's where movement starts. And once it starts, you'll find a whole new set of problems for you. It won't be this first problem, but it will be now you've got business problems, right? What do I do with this? How do I do this? How do I price this? Those are all good problems to have, but those are problems that you have once you get in motion. And this is how to do this. This is an identity gate. It's a gate, right? It's a gate most people don't cross through. There's a whole lot of people who talk about entrepreneurship and businesses and side hustles and things like this. They watch all the videos, listen to all the podcasts, they read all the books, but they never do anything. I know. I talk to those people too. A lot of people, again, that you are seeing posting on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and so on and so forth are not doing anything. Even the ones that have channels, they're successful, that have the numbers. I've talked to many of them. They're not making money. It doesn't mean, it's not a direct translation. What makes money is, again, solving somebody's problem and generating things. And what creates you more freedom than anything is realizing that you can make money outside of an employer. And that's the big win for you. So again, this $500 challenge, this is not complicated. It's a gate. It's one thing to do. It's taking action. It's simple. But here's the kind of things we're going to be talking about. I'm talking about ownership. This is you taking ownership of you, not a company necessarily, but taking ownership of your career and your ability to earn money. If you like these kind of things, check out this podcast. Go subscribe to it. Hit the little bell button so you're notified when the next one comes out. If you're listening to this on podcast, and you give us a review, Spotify, Apple podcast reviews, It helps people understand, hey, what is this about? Because that's what we do look at. We look at reviews, right? And that tells us whether this is of value to them.